31. I know that Clint Derringer will be here in a couple minutes. If you could all stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we're just going to introduce each ourselves at the meeting time. I'm Colleen Worden. I'm a board trustee.
I'm Ben Matteson, facilities director for the district.
Andrea, Tuttle, Superintendent.
Andrea, CFO.
And Gary Kemp with Plante Moran, we're the owner rep for the bond program.
Okay, the first thing up is public comments. I don't think we have a form, so we are going to have people that would like to speak just stand up and speak, and then your comments are limited to 3 minutes. Is there anyone that would like to speak for public comment?
I'll speak.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Jan Reindress. I live in Grosse Pointe Woods. I don't know what needs to be done with Trombley, but something needs to be done. I just don't think we should have a depreciating asset in the neighborhood. And I know I'm a realtor, and I have had people ask me about it, and they're not really crazy about having to purchase a home there. Though I will say I've seen prices are up, but there's no reason just leaving it. Let's just do something with it, regardless what it is. That's all I've got to say.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Schroeder. 3 minutes.
Well, the hope in our community is pretty simple. Now that we finally have money for the bond and sinking fund, we have a real chance to do what's right. Reopen Trombley as an elementary school. The timing is right, the community is paying attention, and the future of our neighborhoods depends on choices you make. Small neighborhood schools like Trombley are what makes the points feel like home. They can work, they have worked, and they help keep our community strong. But lately we've been hearing some troubling things. They're talking about withdrawing marriage boundary lines, move the kids south of Jefferson into that district. Some say this is about trying to fix a decision from years ago when the board sold Coop Park. Others believe it's part of a larger plan to prepare for district-wide busing. A setup that will definitely fail. Small neighborhood schools like Trombley are what make points feel like home. They can work, they have them. We have a chance to fix what's going on at Trombley right now. It's fallen apart. Neglect is the biggest problem with any building anywhere. Others believe it's part of a larger plan to prepare for district-wide busing. A setup that would make it easier to close even more schools, including middle and high school, just to free up money for other priorities. That's a mistake. Closing elementary schools leads to lower enrollment. Families stop moving here. People leave. We lose what makes the point special. Trombley is part of what makes the park great. It's in a walkable, connected neighborhood. That's what families want. That's why people move here and stay here. And yet Trombley is still closed. Many in the community believe it's because of personal loyalties. It doesn't have to be. We need people to step up and forget about what has happened in the past, move forward. We're all excited about $50,000 for GSRE rooms. I'm pretty sure there's over $1 million on the table for a donation once Trombley opens up as an elementary school. You got enough people, you got enough money, you got enough people that really care. Please do the right thing. I hate to see Trombley stay closed due to past allegiances. Let's move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else want to make a public comment?
I do.
Go ahead.
So my name is Colleen Sanders. Hello, everyone. I moved to the 900 block of Barrington back in 2021 in the spring. My son actually attended Trombley the last year they were open for their preschool. My kids are currently, I have a second grader at Defer and I have a kindergartner at Defer. Some things that happened with Trombley's closing was we had to school hop. So neither of my kids met the deadline for young fives at Defer, so they went, my son after Trombley went to Richard for pre-K. That's the closest option to where we live. And then from there started at Defer as a kindergartner and has been at Defer since. My daughter, since Trombley wasn't an option, went to Barnes for like an early childhood preschool class. And then from there, we put her into Richard pre-K so we could get her closer to home. And then now she is at Defer kindergarten. for her first year. I think a couple of things that I've got to experience Trombley at least 1 year with my family. Some of the friends that I have here to this day that I've made in the last 5 years are from that parent group of kids that went there. I know of at least 3 of the kids that are now homeschooled from his class. I know at least 3 other kids in his class now go to private schools and aren't a GPS but still live south of Jefferson. So I've seen that impact of just closing the school, and families that I know living right there would be there if it was open. My kids would be there if it was open. And so I just wanted to come. I know there hasn't been a lot of experience talked about, I think, with kids that could be there right now, and the school hopping that we had to do was quite just inefficient all around and not great. Class sizes are huge. My son, as a kindergartner at Defer, was in one of 4 of the kindergarten classes, 26 to 28 students in every single class. This year, my daughter is in kindergarten. I believe there's still 4. If there's not 4 and there's 3, there's still at least 27 kids in her class. They got 2 new students that happened last month, and that's the same size as the other classes. So they're definitely full, and we're feeling that as parents all around too. Wish we had the option just a couple blocks of walking distance away from us instead of across Jefferson. So I hope you do the right thing by Trombley as well.
Thank you. Anyone else want to make a public comment?
Sure. Tom Coffin, City of Grosse Pointe Park, resident of Pemberton. First off, congratulations to the new committee chair and people here. I appreciate your willingness to take on this work, as I do understand. I want to express my encouragement regarding the district's renewed focus on expanding preschool programming across the district. This vision was clearly presented by the City of Grosse Pointe Park last May, and it does reflect what many families in here have been talking about. There's significant demand for neighborhood-based preschools paired with an expanded central ECC. From both an operating budget and bond utilization standpoint, that approach is the most efficient. Prior analysis have demonstrated that Trombley, Mayor, and Defer are critical to achieving this vision, and that the only option that remains neutral to your operating budget is utilizing Trombley as both the preschool and elementary school. The district has been aware of the cost structure and prioritization of key building upgrades since December in 2024. We are pleased to see that the new window replacement is coming under budget, and Trombley is uniquely positioned to move forward quickly given the current bidding conditions and scheduling flexibility. These improvements are not constrained by the academic calendar. What is concerning is the lack of urgency. Delaying Trombley-related decisions or improvements now, particularly with indications that future availability could be pushed out for years, runs counter to both fiscal responsibility on your needs and the needs of our families. Therefore, I respect this committee and the board to move forward with urgency to fund Trombley improvements that do not require finalized long-term plan to proceed, commit to expanding preschool in a fiscally responsible and budget-neutral manner by reopening Trombley, and then hold any alternative proposal to the same fiscal and financial operation standards as planned that was presented by the city last year. Our families have been patient. The data is clear. It is there. The opportunity is now, and only delays will increase your costs and uncertainty. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Sabina Efradi. I don't speak in public a lot, but I just wanted to reinforce what this young mom just said. I live on in a 600 block of Westchester. We have 21 houses and we have 13 children under the age of 10. None of the parents, they're all new families. They have their kids either at Defer or in private schools or homeschool. In my small block, I have all 3 instances. They're not here because they don't even know what they're missing out on. And they're confused by the politics, and they hear mixed messages, and so that's why they're not here. But I'm here to represent them. My kids went to Trombley. It was wonderful, and I know all the sentiments about the sense of community, the involvement of the parents in school, the congestion that I hear at Defer. I just wanted to reinforce all those sentiments on behalf of my little block and all the young parents that are not here because again they don't know what they're missing. So thank you.
Thank you. other comments? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that I think that we need to address the facility and how it is looking rather decrepit. It needs to be fixed up. The class sizes that are going on at Defer and Mayor, I don't know, but I know the class sizes at Defer are quite high, and it could be solved with reopening Trombley. In addition to that, I too live in the Trombley district, the 800 block of Pemberton, and there are a number of children on the block. We have people going to parochial schools. We have people that consider homeschooling. We have people that are sad that their children are deferred with high numbers. It's just not right. We're supposed to be, we consider ourselves a wonderful, close-knit community, a walkable community. When you're going to walk your kid across Jefferson, that's a little tough when they're in kindergarten or first grade. So just please work on the building and let's get moving on this.
If we could you tell us your name?
Oh, certainly. I'm sorry. My name is Susan Griffin.
Thank you
I'm
so
from
much.
Pemberton.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Anna Green. I live in the park also, the 800 block of Berkshire. My son Teddy is actually in your daughter's classroom, so 27 students. Last year, he was in preschool where I work. I am a teacher at a private school in Bloomfield Hills, Cranbrook, and the ratio was 16 students with 3 teachers. And so I want to offer a little bit of a different perspective. Of course, I agree with everything that's been said here. As a mom, I don't like seeing the ratios, but also I offer the perspective of somebody that understands intimately the students who are not being captured by our district because they make a choice to go to private school. They see the ratios, they see 27 students, and they say, that's not right for my child. We moved to this district because even though I work at a private school, we believe in public education. And we had really hoped to see Trombley open because we want to see our son go to the school that is 2 blocks away from our house. We want to have a more intimate relationship with our immediate neighbors that is stitched together by our participation in that school. And that is not something that a private school like Cranbrook can offer to my son, to my younger son, and to my daughter. And the other thing I want to offer is that right now, I am the mom of a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 5-month-old. I go to Defer, then I go to Barnes, then I drive to Bloomfield Hills to put my daughter in daycare. So that is a kind of insane triangulation of commuting to make sure that all of my children are safe and cared for while I go to teach my students. And I think that really draws attention to the problem, not only of needing Trombley as an elementary school, but also of supplementing our early childhood programs. And the last piece that I want to share is that I did attend the strategic planning meetings, and one of the questions that was asked by the facilitator, what is the one thing that you would say could make the school district better? And every single one of the people in attendance said one of 2 things. 1, pay the teachers more, or 2, decrease classroom sizes. And I think one of the ways that we can really help our teachers and our families is by decreasing classroom sizes, because of course we know that the lower the workload is for teachers, the less likely they are to burn out, the better the likelihood that they can really invest in that individualized instruction that Grosse Pointe is really known for. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any more comments? Go ahead.
Sorry, I hope you can hear me. What everyone's been saying here is many of the decisions that we are living with now were made in the past. The goal shouldn't be to revisit those past decisions, but to respond to the current realities of the district. The community is looking for a clear vision for what to do with Trombley. Most are motivated by a desire for an elementary school, as we've heard. We should start with a goal to open Trombley to at least identify all the obstacles in the way. Decide which ones we can or can't overcome and commit to an option going forward. The starting point being we want to open it, and then figure out if we can or cannot, not start with reasons why we couldn't open it. Years ago we went to a K-4 configuration. At that time it wasn't preferred, but it was seen as a way to combat declining enrollment. What it demonstrated is that students aren't items on the shelf that you can just shift to another location. There was a large enrollment loss. I suggest revisiting a K-5 reconfiguration for 2 reasons: student outcomes and facility alignment. First, the research on grade configuration is clear about the downsizing or the downside of transitions. When students would switch buildings, districts commonly see short-term dips in achievement, attendance disruptions, and increases in behavioral and adjustment issues. Configurations that reduce or delay transitions show stronger outcomes in the middle grades. At GPPSS, our structure forces a universal transition at grade 5. Every student moves buildings from 4 to 5. A K-5 model removes that early transition and keeps students in an elementary environment longer, resulting in greater stability, fewer disruptions, and better continuity. I think if you speak to many of the students that have transferred to other competitive schools, you're going to find that the K-5 configuration is more preferred, even K-8, but I don't want to upset everybody. Secondly, our facility data makes this a realistic discussion now, because right now in K-4 of elementary buildings, we have around 2,369 students in 3,562 seats. That is 1,193 empty seats. Now, most classrooms don't ever operate at their full capacity because of curriculum and instructional needs, so utilization rates can't be weighed that heavily just by numbers alone. This is a district that has capacity, but it's not aligned with the current structure and needs of the community. We have good data to know that many of the people that choose to attend competitive schools also do it for smaller class sizes, so that becomes a part of this discussion as well. So I'm looking to solve a few problems. Problems in our district have been identified by staff and students. Class sizes in one location don't always match class sizes at other schools. Teachers are also concerned about these imbalances as well as parents. It is an inequity that exists. The issue then becomes where the seats are and whether we can absorb grade 5 without inflating class sizes. Some buildings are already near capacity, so implementing a K-5 would require a lot of planning, and in that discussion, Trombley would certainly be part of that discussion, because if you're going to rebalance the district and possibly redistrict some boundaries, you're going to want to have another elementary school to make sure that you can balance all of the options that you have and people are going to the right place, fix the inequity and the balance of enrollment throughout the district. Also, if you remove some of the operations in the 5th grades in the middle schools, you can repurpose a lot of those spaces, which gives us room to innovate and grow as a district, because sometimes we're stagnant because we have a lack of property and real estate, and if we had more room space in some of the middle schools, we could offer more attractive options. So overall, I just think that the district should examine the full scope of K-5 and K-4 and the possibility of optimizing Trombley within that and fixing some of the inequities in class sizes and the imbalances for teachers and for students. Thank you.
And if you could just, I know who you are, Mr. Derringer, but if you could just say your name out loud for everyone.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Go ahead.
Max Wiener, Grosse Pointe Park. The one thing I'd implore this committee is to have vision with what we're doing here. Vision as to what Grosse Pointe education has been, what it is now, and what it can be. Clearly, the walkability, the identity of the schools here fosters a sense of community that you're not going to find anywhere else. And decisions that you make, it's going to take time, it's going to have consequences. And look at this room, look at how it's brought everyone together. Think about what we're doing and how it's going to redefine what we have as a community in education. The other thing I'd implore on you too, consider resources. I've always been following this, and it's always been a question of, do we have the resources to pursue this? The board asked for a sinking fund, you received it. You asked for a bond, you received it. We have financial resources, but above and beyond that, take a look at what's been brought together over the last 2 years, the resources of the community, the amount of work that went to this, the work that residents put into the surveys, the volunteering, the efforts. We are all aware also there's other financial resources that are coming into this. So again, consider what you've got beyond just the bond, beyond the millage, what we can actually do as a community to support what you're doing. You're not alone in this. We're obviously all here to support this, but we have a vision to maintain what we've got in this walkable community. So thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, Kelly Francis, 700 block of Westchester. I don't want to keep beating the same topics over the head. I've been in many of these meetings over very many years, and we keep telling you the same things. Welcome the new faces. I do appreciate all the time and energy. You have a lot of things on your plate. But Trombley, I've never heard one thing from our committees about what you're doing. It's been ignored. You shut the door, you walked away, and you've kicked this wonderful asset in an area where you don't have any other properties available if you decide to get rid of Trombley, you can't get another one. There's no room, there's no place, there's no money. You have this wonderful asset and you've been ignoring it. You have the kids, you have the community. Please, think about it and tell us what you're gonna do moving forward. There has to be some plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more comments?
Hi, good evening. Pat Gleason, park resident, council member, and graduate of the district. I appreciate the opportunity to speak before the committee and for all the community members here tonight. And the position you're in is a tough one. We have a wonderful district with aging facilities, but at the end of the day, we all just want to see something be done with that school. Ideally, we get to reopen it and turn it into the wonderful gem for the community that it is, but we need a plan of some kind. I grew up down south of Jefferson, I live across from Trombley, and I get stopped on my walks with the dogs several times a day about what the outcome for that building will be. We need to see something with it. And at the end of the day, we worked hard to push that bond for the outcome of every kid in the district, not just the ones who live south of Jefferson. Every kid deserves the same level of funding, the same equity, and the same ability to the great education we care about in this community. But several residents worked very hard to push it for the belief that money would be spent on Trombley. They put their names, their reputation, and their time out there for that. Many of whom are here tonight because they care. And once that promise was put out there that money could go to that school, that's a hard one to walk back. We want to see that that's done for the right reasons for the community. But as ECHO, we are here tonight to support you with what your vision becomes, because we all care about the outcome. And the district is one of the unifying aspects for all the Grosse Points. And so the outcome for this shouldn't be the north end versus the south end, rather what we can do to collectively make the district stronger for the kids today and for the ones down the road. Thank you.
Any more comments?
Hi, my name is Matt Kale. I live on the 800 block of Westchester. A bunch of neighbors around here. I think everybody said pretty much everything, which is great. I agree with most of it. We might differ on some details. But I just ask that you all take note of, A, how really it's very hard to get out here to these events. Like, these are the only forums we have to talk to. It's very hard to get responses and emails and stuff like that. And when you have 3 kids, 3 kids and a job, getting out here at 5:30 once a month is tough. Same with the Monday night board meetings. So first, please take note. People care about this, and it's hard. Thank you for listening. Also, please take note of, one thing I love about my community is we're very respectful to each other, and we're very respectful to others. And everybody who's gotten up here today, despite how passionately they feel, they've spoken with clarity, with kindness, and with a calm. So I'd like you to take note of that. We take a lot of arrows in the back on Facebook and otherwise at the microphone. And I'm really proud of everybody here today who's spoken with such kindness and clarity. Proud to be your neighbor. And the last thing is, our city council members spoke to it. We worked really hard. Nobody wants to bankrupt this district, right? And we took very seriously the challenge of presenting a budget-neutral plan for what started as a Trombley thing, but in talking to neighbors, everybody wants more preschool. Everybody wants more early childhood education. We love the product that you guys put out. I'm a Barnes dad now, and I love it. I say it with pride. And we've presented a budget-neutral plan to you all. I hope that that budget neutrality that you asked out of us, you ask of yourselves when presenting future plans for how to expand preschool in this district. I know there's been talk of Trombley as an elementary plus preschool, as a Barnes V2. I'm pretty confident if our CFO, our talented CFO, crunches the numbers, she'll show you that the most financially responsible thing to do is to use Trombley as an asset to expand preschool and to reduce class sizes throughout the entire district. So thank you for listening. We'll continue with kindness and persistence in all of our future communication. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Craig Deerhurst. I'm 800 block of Barrington. Just want to say a few words. I'm a lifelong resident of this school system, I went to Cole Park, Parcells, and then this school. I remember studying for exams in this room. And when my wife and I got to the point where we wanted to start a family, we intentionally moved to the Trombley neighborhood because it had such wonderful, glowing reviews of the school itself and the community. And they weren't wrong. We experienced Trombley and the neighborhood and the neighbors, not just the parks. The parks are wonderful, and all the Grosse Points are wonderful. But Trombley was really special, and we enjoy those relationships today, even now that our child is gone from the school system, all the way, elementary, middle, and high school, he's gone out of state to college. So if Trombley stays open, if Trombley's reopened, we won't benefit directly, but we really, truly believe it should be reopened because it is special, it's unique, and it's needed. It's not just like, oh, well, it's a fun thing to do, let's do it. It's needed, the data's there, the argument's there, the people are there. There's no good reason to not do it. I can't imagine why we wouldn't do this. And so, as people who really don't have, would you say, skin in the game, we're proponents. I don't see people lining up to say, let's not do this and here are the reasons why. All I hear are people saying, here are all good reasons, let's go ahead and do this. So it's just, I'm only standing here saying this to offer a little bit of a different perspective because most of these people with very good reasons have children who will benefit, and that's the best reason, but just from a little bit different perspective, we're willing as retirees, as people with kids in college, we want to support this too. So let's all do this together and for the right reasons. Thanks.
Any more comments?
Elizabeth Herford, 700 block of Berkshire. As someone that has a graduate who is now in college and then 2 kids that are currently in the high school, I know there's a lot of talk about losing enrollment. And as a Trombley family, my middle son was the last class to go through Trombley. I've seen across the spectrum, and my daughter was moved from Trombley to Derringer and has gone up. But a bigger part of the enrollment issue, what we've seen, we have 23 kids on our block currently. We have 5 families that have moved in or rotated houses since 2020. And since they moved in, 3 of those families have moved out directly because of the schools and what they thought was going to happen in the promise. We have another one that has decided to homeschool because they don't like the model. It's hard to see because as someone in the community that's grown up in that South of Jefferson community and having our schools and knowing how great our schools are and can be, it really, really, really would be advantageous to be able to have that park community behind you and the entire Grosse Pointe Park, including the South of Jefferson side, to not have and lose especially our younger families. So I ask as well, as someone that is almost out of the Grosse Pointe school system, please support South of Jefferson, the Trombley area, and all of our students, to include all of our families, and especially the families that move in from outside of the points who want to go to our schools.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Blanche Karlinski, and I'm a resident of Pemberton, and I've been living here for a few years. I'm an immigrant to the U.S., and I tell you that based on what Greg said, the uniqueness of Trombley. My 2 sons went to Trombley. One is in college, and the other one is about to finish and go to college. And the memories that most of you guys that we know each other have of Trombley for the strategically location, uniqueness, only houses together, kids walking. And one thing that made me think today is about one of you guys saying what we have contributed, like the volunteers that used to work in Trombley together is something that is standing today. For example, we have in the National Festival that was a legacy from Trombley. That today it has been 10 years that I started the National Festival 10 years ago. Some of my friends here, together with a lady that unfortunately passed away, Joan Perkins. We started 10 years ago And this is a legacy that today the same concept of the international festival is taking place in Pierce, and they are extending to Mare and the Fair. And that's something that started in Trombley. Because of the families that move in Trombley, that are in Trombley together. And we are still, our kids grew up together because of the closeness, the uniqueness of the familiarity of faces in Trombley. I'm sure that you guys are going to have, as I exit the school as a mom, I'm sure that you are going to have the same experience when you guys have activities in Trombley, so close, so unique. And then that's going to continue for the rest of the life for the kids because they live together, they remember Trombley, they remember different activities that we do, and that's something that is not, sometimes we see about the financial point of view, but also we have to consider what we want for our future, for the kids, so that will be the future, for something that we give them, that uniqueness, like smaller classes that will be able to have the students like more knowledge, more learning, and the activities that surround the families that just go over Trombley, and support is going to be very supportive. So I wanted to ask you guys respectfully to consider the opening of Trombley because it's an asset. It's an asset that is impacting everybody's life and it's going to impact for the future. And if we want to attract new students, I have for example, today I saw my neighbor and they have already a sign of St. Paul. And it's a new neighbor, they moved very recently in the next few years. And it's already going to St. Paul. They have two beautiful children that will have gotten to Trombley, so close to Trombley that will have walked to Trombley. But we are losing some of the some students that will be possible for the opening of school. And I want to encourage, you to see that part from the point of view of the children, for the students, and for the community that will be able to support your decision.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else? Okay, thank you so much for all of your comments. The first thing that's up is under information discussion are the RFPs and structure for architectural CM technology and the selection committee.
And thank you, Trustee Worden. I have our Plante Moran owners reps. Obviously, Paul Theriault has now joined us, so thank you. And Gary Kent, who introduced himself earlier in the meeting. We shared a little bit about the RFPs at our last board meeting, but they're here to answer any additional questions that you may have and then explain the selection process to you. So I'll turn it over to you. Are you doing the present?
Yes, I'm not sure what's going on with the slide deck.
Just so you know, board members and committee members, you have in front of you the governance, the 3 documents that I've provided. This is the presentation from Plante Moran, the governance as well. And then you also have the 2 RFPs that will be discussed later in the agenda. I'm going to go try to log into here again, but go ahead and start without me.
So starting on slide 5 of the presentation, or really slide 6, it's just an update of kind of where we're at with the RFPs that were presented last time. The first one being the architect engineer RFP that went out in early January. So we are expecting bids back for that on Friday at about 2 o'clock. We met with all the architectural firms. Out of the 6, we actually did just hear back from one of the firms that they're not going to be bidding on it, but 5 of the 6 still are going to be submitting proposals. So we're going to be getting those proposals back on Friday.
You have the clicker?
Yep.
You're
All
all
set.
set? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll be getting those proposals back on Friday, and then we'll be taking them to the next facilities committee meeting, and then the following 2 board meetings for approval.
Once those come in, we've got some evaluations to do. We'll do a criteria-based selection, probably to help sort through the interview and go through an interview process and leave no stone unturned. We work with all those firms pretty regularly, but obviously it depends on which teams they present and what their org charts look like and that type of thing. So we want to be very thorough and make sure we get the right firm for the district.
And then similarly with the construction manager, that RFP will be going out in early February, and then we're going to be receiving bids back for that on February 20th. We'll evaluate the proposals from February 23rd through the 25th, and then take that to the following facilities committee and subsequent 2 board meetings in March for approval. And the technology designer, we Administration met with Mr. Kelly on Friday, Mr. Matteson and myself, to just finalize that scope for the RFP, and then that'll be going out in March. We'll receive proposals back towards the end of March and then take that to the facilities and the board for approval in April. This is a slide that we went over previously, just outlining how the architect and engineer fits within the organizational chart for the district's 2025 bond program. Really, their job is to develop design documents and provide construction oversight throughout the entire construction phases, work with the owner and the construction manager to develop the budget. And these are the 6 firms that were invited to submit a proposal for the bond program. The one that is no longer going to be able to submit is Fanning Howey, and that's due to they were happened to be invited to it. However, their current workload just didn't fit with the size of this bond program, so they had to respectfully decline. Any questions on the architectural engineer? Okay. Moving on to the construction manager and their org chart and how they fit within the bond program. So again, really during the design phase, they're going to be providing estimates based on the construction drawings that are provided to them by the architect, and then they'll implement bidding of the work and then overseeing all the construction throughout the entire bond program. And then on the right, you'll see the recent fees and kind of what we're seeing with the CM market as a constructor. It's typically 9 to 11% right now. So, and then this is the updated list for construction management firms that are going to be submitting proposals. So we did have 2 that were declining to bid, Barton Mello and Granger Construction. So we did add a 6th firm, which is DeMaria Building Company. They're actually working in the district right now with Mr. Matteson and myself on the Grosse Pointe North and South Chiller programs. They've worked in other districts with Plante Moran, and outside of Plante Moran, they're working in Grosse Ile and in the Grosse Pointe Public School System. And then they're also working with us in Flint, I believe, for a project. So,
Yeah, and then one other late change there. Turner, I met with their new senior VP that's running their Detroit office, and they are probably not going to submit either. So we've got 5 firms, all 5 of those other firms that we've talked to, and they're all planning on submitting. So
the reason that Turner gave?
They're really looking to do different markets and grow different markets here. They don't do a lot of K-12. They've done a little bit for Detroit Public Schools. They did our last bond. But they're really looking to pursue other manufacturing, data centers, that type of healthcare type of work. So,
thank you.
Yep.
And then technology designer, just to refresh everyone, this is how they fit in the org chart. Really, their goal is to just work with Mr. Kelly, develop a plan for the next 6-7 years, design it, and then implement that strategy. And obviously, they'll work in unison with the architect and the construction manager and make sure that we have good synergy. We're not going back into spaces twice. We're working in unison. And then these are the 5 firms that will be invited to bid for that proposal. So we have Barton Mallow, IDS, Plante Moran, Wright and Hunter, and Communications by Design, which all are good firms. Any questions on the RFP and structure for the bond program?
Can you help me understand the relationship between Plante Moran and Plante Moran Realpoint?
Sure. So Plante Moran, the big Plante Moran that people know as an accounting and consulting firm. So the Plante Moran Technology Consultants is part of that. Plante Moran Realpoint is a separate entity. We're 50.0% owned by a partnership group and 50.0% owned by Plante Moran. So on the last bond, when we bid all this out, we recused ourselves from the process. We let your attorney write the RFP, we let her write the contract, we let her run the whole procurement process as far as the technology design went, and we plan on doing something similar this time around. So,
thank you.
Yep.
Okay. And then diving back in the presentation to governance is the next one.
I need to talk a little bit about the bond series too.
Okay.
So, President Derringer, when you were the head of this committee, we talked about the potential of a bond series 2, and I know the board has brought it up as well. And as I shared with you, I was hoping PFM could be here this evening. They could not. They're at a presentation, but so I hope that they can come to a subsequent meeting. However, I did send an email to all of you, and I do have copies of that as well. I asked Carrie Plante and Sean Wall, who work with us from PFM, how that would work if the board chose to go for a Series 2 and when. And the biggest, I don't know if you could pass those down just for recollection purposes, but the biggest item, if you look on that email, the last page, I asked her some questions, and then I asked her, what have I not asked that I should be asking with her expertise. So I just want to go to 3. Basically, she's saying that the board would need to decide what projects they think that they would like to do in a Series 2, how much that would cost, talk with Plante Moran as well as Mr. Matteson. Is it feasible? And then to decide upon an amount that you would want to go for a Series 2. So they will be hopefully here. We'll schedule the next, with Trustee Worden's approval, the next facilities meeting on a date that they are able to join us so that they can speak specifically to this and talk about that. But ultimately, I think the question becomes, what is it that we're trying to accomplish? Are there more projects that we want to put into a Series 2? And if so, how much? And then they can talk the time frame, the pros and cons of doing that. So I wanted to bring you up to speed on where we are with that.
I have a question about that. So I understand part of the reason, I think I was at that facilities meeting, that because the market is favorable right now for bonds, but what does that mean in terms of how much we can handle as and I guess this would be a question for you, Dr. Tuttle, and for Ben, or I'm sorry, Mr. Matteson. I mean, is there like a limit on how much we can, how many projects?
For sure, you don't want to get into arbitrage issues, obviously, where you ask the community to give money and then you sit on it. You have to spend it in a certain time frame, and you can't just continue to collect interest rates.
Yes.
And so, absolutely, as you know, initially we were going to go for, I believe it was 40 million. Was that the first series when we initially? 45, and then we reversed it to 25. Because we thought the market would perhaps be more favorable in interest rates had we waited. That did not happen to come to fruition, as you recall, and that was obviously the board's decision. So my saying that is that initially we thought that we could absorb $45 million in projects. However, given that we already sold the first series at $25 million, you don't want to go out for a second series at a really small cost, because that puts, we're a 3 series bond, that puts a lot on the 3rd series. And so we really need to balance that. And it all comes to, as you say, capacity of Mr. Matteson, the Plante Moran team. What can they put on their plates and be able to accomplish those projects and build those projects in the time frame necessary so that we're not sitting on the community's money. So I'll turn it over to you to add.
I think that's, those are all great points. There's a lot of different considerations, right? Obviously, how we sell the bonds and the interest rate we get, the interest rate we can invest the proceeds at. The other thing is we really don't want this thing to be lumpy, this bond to be lumpy. We want it to be fairly smooth. We don't want the architect and CM to have to ramp way up and try to do 50 million in 1 year and then downsize down to 20 and put all their people on different jobs in different districts and then ramp back up again. So now that we kind of know where we're at with Series 1, I think we probably do need to sit down once we get an architect on board and a CM on board and talk to them about what the second series may look like. So I think it's good to be having these conversations. I don't know that we're 100% ready to give you the answer of what might be in the first, second, and third year of Series 2 yet, but it's definitely at the top of our mind.
You want to jump in on that?
Yeah,
You're the person who gets to manage it all. So
yeah, there's only so much we can do at different. My team only has so much capacity, Plante Moran, and then the contractors that are working on these projects only have so much capacity. We have roughly 3 months to package these in during a school year, and that's the allotted time we have to do it. So it's very condensed, it's very busy, and sometimes these things have to be staggered out over a couple of years. So,
acknowledging though, the community that Trombley is an anomaly in that it does not have to fit in that summer month projects because it is currently vacant. So there is an acknowledgement of that as well.
One more reminder question from me. The governing rules about how many series we issue. Like right now the plan is 3. It's fine, it's been communicated that way. That's not written in stone in any way, but how heavy of a lift is it hypothetically to change the plan at that level in terms of how many series we issue?
Do you want me to answer that? Or?
Yeah, you can go for it.
Yeah, so the ballot language, I believe, says one or more series. Usually, bonds lately have been 2 to 3, sometimes 4 series. Every time we go to sell a new series to the market, there's some closing costs and issuance costs for underwriters and attorneys and financial advisors and people like that. So we probably don't want to unnecessarily sell more series than we need to, but we do want to understand the cash flow of, you know, when it makes sense to go out to market. To Ben's point, we can only do so much construction in a year, otherwise the maintenance and operations team can't keep up. Same thing as I mentioned with the architects and CMs. There's a lot of school construction out there right now. There's a ton of work obviously going on in Wayne County, in Detroit, and other places. So we are fighting with all these new data center projects and other projects that you see out there. So we really do need to be thoughtful about when do we start design, when do we put things on the street to make sure we get the right bids. But no, we can certainly sell, you know, 2 series, 3 series, 4 series, whatever we think is in the district's best interest.
Okay, and then the clarifying point, just from my own memory, please correct me if I'm wrong, but the bond initiative on the ballot was discussed as no increase to our current debt service millage, which 3.14, I think, you know, happens to be pi, which sticks in my brain. But, so I think it's 3.14, and then that is another constraint when we're talking about how much and when, because we pull money forward into whatever year, debt service starts on some schedule, and we do not want to increase the millage that we are asking in terms of servicing that, because we said that this would be a no increase. So it's another constraint to this to make sure that we want to stay under that. And we discussed that in very much detail in November, I think, with PFM. If anybody's interested to go back and see the details and how that works, that information is there. This is a paraphrased summary of that, but it is important, of course, because we said that we are going to stay under that 3.14 mils for debt service, which means we can't pull all the money forward and then pay the service fees on that, because it would go over that 3.14 millage rate, in addition to other rules that are all discussed in that other meeting. So exactly. Just an additional point, an additional constraint.
And Carrie Blanchett summarizes that as well in her email.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's in, yes, exactly. It's here as well about, so what is that number then? To stay under 3.14, you calculate that from there and you can figure out how much money can move into different time slots.
So I think it would behoove us, just to bring this to some kind of closure, I think it would behoove us to have the next meeting with a representative from PFM available, but I think the board needs to decide in a utopia world, what is it they're hoping to accomplish in Series 2, and then obviously get input from Ben and what capacity we can accomplish those, and then how monetarily that affects exactly the things that you're saying, draw schedules and so forth like that. So at some point the board needs to discuss, if you want to go for a Series 2, what is the hope that would be encompassed in that Series 2. Anything further? Any other questions on that? So again, I hope that PFM can be here and that the board can have discussions on what they would like to do with the Series 2. All right, moving on to governance, and I'm going to kick it back to you, Mr. Kent.
Yeah, I can probably lead this one. So we had mentioned the last time we were here about putting together a governance document for the bond program, and we're hoping this could apply to the sinking fund program as well. So obviously the board policies are really set up, very thoroughly. And they're pretty long if you care to read them, I'm sure. You guys have read a lot of them. But they're really set up to run day to day to run a school district with all the things from the financial perspective and hiring and collecting dollars and operating schools and things of that nature. They're really not set up necessarily to help run a $120 million bond or a $111+ million sinking fund. So typically when we start these projects, and we did this on the last bond as well, is we would put together a governance document to try to talk through a few different things. The first one is really, kind of what the purpose of this, which I just kind of walked through, is. The next one is kind of roles and responsibilities. So obviously we have this committee, we've got the board, we've got administration roles, we've got ourselves, architects, CMs. There's a lot of different parties that come together to make these things happen, so we want to make sure everybody's very clear on what their roles and responsibilities are. The last time we had an oversight committee as well. We want to make sure that we understand how that's structured, how often do they meet, what's their role, things of that nature. So this really just gets into a lot of detail. Not going to go through every line of it, but that's really how it's set up. So section B talks about roles and responsibilities, again, of what this committee is doing, what the board does, what the oversight committee would do, how often they would meet. The next section really talks about funding sources and budget responsibilities. So obviously, as we sell bonds, there's limitations on how that money has to be spent. Bonds have one set of rules, sinking funds have a slightly different set of rules. If at any time we're able to put other dollars into the pot, we want to make sure we know what strings those might come with, whether it's a state grant or a federal grant. Sometimes there's food service money that may be a surplus that we can use to help renovate kitchens. That has different strings attached to it. So we really want to make sure that we know what our funding sources are and how that money comes in and then how it has to be spent back out. A lot of those things have to be put into the contracts or put into the RFPs when we put them on the street. As an example, federal money comes with a lot of uniform guidance that we have to follow, data spake and prevailing wages. We have to put other language in the contract about anti-collusion and anti-kickback and things like that to comply with all that federal uniform guidance language. So those are some of the things that are kind of detailed in here about funding sources. And then
if I may for a second.
Sure.
I sent this out for your review. Do you want him to continue with the summation, or would you like to ask questions? I know you've had a chance to look at it. How would you like to proceed with that?
I think just what you're doing is fine, so the
Okay.
members of the public.
Yeah, I'm happy to
can
get into
yeah.
as much detail as you
Yeah,
want. I just don't want to.
briefly, yeah.
Okay. The next big one is really budget responsibility. So obviously the district has its own set of books. And Andrea will obviously be watching every single penny and cutting every single check and making sure that everything is tracked on the district's end. We do the same thing on our end with a system called eBuilder, where it's a web-based, cloud-based system where the district can access it anytime, 24/7. But we track every dollar in that system, every contract that's written, every budget line item, every time we want to pay something. We set up processes so that the vendors can email invoices into a folder, and they notify our accountants, then they notify Gary when he's ready to look at them, and then Ben. And so we're going to be developing some flowcharts about how to actually push invoices around and do different things. But a big part is budget responsibility. So there are some things you guys will be purchasing directly, let's say, like furniture potentially, or a big one is IT hardware. Like if you guys want to go buy Chromebooks, you're just going to go buy those off a consortium, or you're just going to go right out to the market. You're not necessarily going to have us involved with that process. So what things are you guys going to do directly versus what are we going to help you do, and who's responsible to make sure we follow all the procurement guidelines and things like that. So we have some language in here just about who's kind of taking the lead on different parts of the budget. And then we reconcile every month. So we literally will look at your books, look at our books, reconcile them down to the penny every single month to make sure that nothing gets awry. But there's 30 days in between when you guys are doing things and we're helping with things as well. And then the next big section is procurement. So in schools, and Jeremy Motes was at the last meeting and kind of walked through this in detail, so I won't get quite so geeky, but professional services, we can kind of do whatever we want, whatever's in the best interest of the district. And then for hard construction, we have to follow a law 380, MCL 380-1267 that talks about how we advertise and how we publicly bid and who we have to award to and bonding and things like that. And then for furniture and equipment, there's a different law, MCL 380-1274, that talks about buying furniture and buying equipment and things like that. Similar but different. So we really break the procurement part into those three different buckets: professional services, construction, and then FF&E. So it gets kind of particular about whether we have to bid it, or if it's under the bid threshold, we could potentially just go get quotes. If it's over, we have to publicly bid it. It gets kind of very specific about all the steps involved there to make sure that we comply with the law. Even about who's going to put the advertisement in the paper and who's going to advertise on the state's website and things like that. We don't want to mess any of that up, because if you do, you get to redo it and start over, and it's not a lot of fun. I've had to do that before, where we thought we click the district thought they clicked the button and posted it, and they forgot to, and we've had to extend bid periods and things like that. Not in Grosse Pointe, but in other districts. So it's not a lot of fun to do. So really, this is just getting clarity, because we're going to be working together again for another 7 years or so, 6, 7 years. We want to make sure that everybody knows their role and everybody knows what they're expected to do. And if, halfway through we want to adjust these, or maybe even on an annual basis, it wouldn't be a bad idea just to kind of revisit this, see what's working, see what's not, and make some adjustments. And then even down to once we do award contracts, obviously a lot of those contracts have to come back to the board. So all the hard construction will come back to the board for award. All the major professional services will come back to the board. All the FF&E will probably come back to the board. How do we cut POs? What contracts do we write? What does your attorney do? What do we help with? That's all laid out in here as well.
I just want to tie this piece of your conversation about procurement and the governance section to what we've already talked about tonight in the previous presentation.
Yeah.
Those were professional services that we were talking about, the construction manager, the architect, the technology design firm. We had this conversation again in Facilities Committee last year. If anybody wants to review, we were not required to send those out for bid based on all of this governance and the rules that we're talking about, but the Facilities Committee recommended, and then the board agreed and approved to send those out for bid, to send that scope of work out for bid in the interest of using competition to try to reduce costs. So again, just reiterating this in theory and governance and structure to the reality of what we've already talked about and how it connects to what we've done in the last quarter or so. So thank you.
Yeah, no, it's a great example, and it's very similar to what we did on the last bond as well, and how we've been operating with the sinking fund. So we definitely want to be transparent. We want to hold people accountable. We want the board to know exactly what's going on. Another part of this that's a couple sections later, it talks about exactly how often we're going to meet, how do we report back to the board, how do we report back to this committee, what do we put on this district's website so that the community can see what's going on. Obviously, we'll be presenting at a lot of public meetings like tonight, but we also want to have a tab on your website where we can post a lot of this information so people can, with a couple clicks, find whatever they're looking for, or have a way to submit questions if they've got questions as well. And then a big part of this is really limits of authority. So, we know about contracts. We talked about, hiring the firms that we need to hire. But then inevitably there are changes. So no one likes change orders, but it's a reality of doing construction. We don't always know what's in the ground or what's in the walls, especially in 100-year-old buildings. So we have to have a process for if someone finds something, how do they notify us? Whether it's a carpenter or a millwright or someone pouring concrete or whatever it is, they have to have a process where they notify us. The architect and the designer have a role to play in making sure that it's a legitimate extra and that it wasn't on the drawings. We've got a role to play to make sure that we've got budgeted money for it and we know why it happened. Ben has a role to play, Andrea and Andrea have a role to play, and then the board potentially too. So we've kind of structured it so that there's some authority for each person that's involved. And then if it gets over a certain amount, which I think we pegged at $100,000, anytime we're over $100,000, we automatically come to the board with it. So if it's under $100,000, we'll be notifying you, and we'll be reporting at least quarterly, if not monthly. We'll be reporting back to the board on exactly where we are with the budget and the contingency and things. But kind of $100,000 is kind of the line in the sand on those change orders.
To be clear, that's the incremental cost of a potential change.
Correct.
So if whatever the thing is, it already cost $200. Now after this change, it's going to cost over $300. That's a $100,000 incremental change that would trigger this.
Yeah, and typically when we bring, let's say we bring a construction project and it's a $10 million project, when we bring that project to the board, we'll be bringing a contingency budget line item with it. So usually, let's say we carry 8 to 10% contingency. So if it's a $10 million project, we may have $800,000 in contingency. So the way the governance is set up is any single item over $100,000, we have to come back to the board. And if at any time we exceed that $800,000, we have to come back to the board as well. So it really gives you some guardrails to know that we have a budget, we're living within it, and if there's any single issue that's big enough, i.e. over $100,000, we'll be coming back to you, and we'll be reporting to you continuously anyway. So Again, we want to be very transparent. It's the public's money. We want to make sure that they trust what we're doing with it and that we're making sure everything gets ticked and tied down to the penny.
Thank you again. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, I appreciate your thoughts. That's really the gist of this. Again, the last section is really just about reporting and communication, how we make sure that we're sharing all this information with the community and with the board. Again, there's some flow charts that we're still working on exactly how we're routing invoices around through accounting and things like that. I guess the only other thing I would mention is, so I mentioned the $100,000 limit, but if you drill down a little deeper, what we're suggesting in here is that anything from 0 to 25,000, Ben would have the authority to sign for the district. If it's between 25 and 50,000, either the CFO or the superintendent would be able to authorize it. If it's between 50 and 100, they both have to authorize it, and if it's over 100, it goes to the board. So we literally are drilling down that carefully to make sure that everybody knows what their roles are and how much authority they have to sign contracts and change orders for the board.
And Dr. Tuttle, did you guys have input on that particular matrix, or?
We did, yeah. We worked very closely with BFM, several conversations about it, and
I assumed, but I didn't want to.
And I felt really comfortable. I'm obviously very familiar with the bond process, so I feel very comfortable with that.
Yeah, and obviously we work with a lot of school districts. This is very similar to what a lot of the other districts in Wayne County and around southeastern Michigan have been doing. And it seems to work well. If we set the limit too low, we'd be asking for special board meetings every week, which I don't think everybody wants to do. But with this, I think we can try to keep things under control and make sure we're good stewards of the dollars.
And of course, ultimately, I'm most concerned that contingency doesn't go over, which I think 8 to 10% is a good amount of cushion, at least in my experience, unless you have a major surprise once you start.
Yeah, hopefully once we get the architect on board, we'll be doing a lot of due diligence, a lot of walkthroughs through the buildings, through the tunnels, up on the roofs, make sure we know exactly what's out there. Ben and his staff are really critical. They know where the electrical issues are, where the mechanical issues are, where the pipes are in the ground, so they can help us avoid a lot of that stuff too. So.
But fair to say, and I'll just reiterate, when you have older buildings, bigger surprises happen.
Yeah, they do. And we budgeted for that.
All right.
Well, I appreciate the detailed explanation because it is the public's money and it is, a lot of details, but I think it is important because people ask me all the time, well, how do you know that the money is going where it's supposed to go? And I like that there's a detailed document that you explained it, and that there are guardrails and that you're acting in accordance with the statute. So thanks for that explanation. And I think this is a good document to point to people when they ask that question because people ask that frequently of our board and of our administration.
Sure.
So thank you.
You're welcome.
Go ahead.
The Bond Oversight Committee, members of the community. So this is something I am not familiar with. I think this is somewhat unique to Grosse Pointe, so I wanted to kind of talk about that. PFM has been involved with Grosse Pointe in having a Bond Oversight Committee. So do you want to talk a little bit first, or I know
Yeah, I mean, there's
about it. And what I'm not sure what the Bond Oversight Committee. I'm still a little confused.
There's a lot of different ways to do it. Some districts, they have a group of citizens that, every 6 months or once a year, they may come together and we give them an update on what's going on with the bond, what projects are coming up next, when we're going to be, at board meetings to make awards and things like that. And we just kind of give them a general sense of, how things are going and what direction we're going in.
So more of an information versus...
Yeah, it's really just an informational way to help the public understand what's going on, and then those people hopefully disseminate it out into their neighborhoods and things like that. That's typically what we see, but you could meet more often. You could have a bigger committee, a smaller committee. What tends to happen is people get really excited at the beginning of the bond, and there's a lot of momentum, and then as you get into the middle and things are kind of, okay, we already heard that, it's business as usual, it kind of peters out typically, but we're happy to set those up however you guys would like.
Well, they did do it the last bond. And
We did.
To me, I think what was explained to the board is it's just another layer of oversight. And
Yeah.
I think there were 5 people, chosen by the superintendent and the president of the board. People that I think generally had project experience or bond experience. And I do think that they met on for the very last couple of projects. So I don't know if they were excited about that or not, but they did meet. It's just a way for our citizens to say, okay, on the checklist, has this been done? Has this not been done? So.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, I think we were overly transparent on the last bond, more so than most of the districts that we work with. And I think if that helps the community understand exactly what's going on, then I'm all for it.
And I believe there's a resolution, so I don't know if I think the board would probably have to pass it again. There's already a document in place.
Okay. Yeah, we can help find that.
So in terms of going forward in this concept of the bond oversight committee, I think what is also important, it was important in the previous bond, I don't want to say that it wasn't, but I know having lived through this, from the ground up more so as a trustee now, I think it's critical that we provide that oversight and communication and sounding board for folks like who are attending tonight who have an understanding of when they were out volunteering and trying to help encourage people to vote for the bond, they had a certain perception of what was going to happen. We created as a district materials that helped communicate what our plans were, and I think that it's the minimum level of accountability to what we're going to do, what we said we're going to do. So oversight, it's technically the right word, but really it's a partnership, and really it's holding our district and our board and the decision process to this initial standard, because there have been times in the past where there was confusion about what was going to happen and what was not going to happen. And that is the last thing that certainly we want going forward right now. Right now, I feel like we are at a moment where we are very close to all on the same page. And if we can stay as close to all on the same page as possible going forward, then that would be quite an achievement. And when we talked about it in 2025 in our last meeting, that is my goal, that this oversight is a channel to make sure that we said we are going to do these things, and here they come. And when there are changes, they will be communicated, and this is how and why it changed, right? Because the plan is not going to be, at the end, the plan is not going to be what it started as, for sure. But when it changes, we should communicate that, and I think this particular group helps with that. It's a communication channel directly with the community.
Yep, 100% agree.
Okay, are we ready for the Parcells pool?
Yes, so that's another big initiative that needs a lot of decisions. During the bond advisory committee, obviously it was a decision of the community, knowing that we don't have, at that point, didn't have a definitive plan for that space, which is a very large space. And we had talked to the board about the fact that we need an architect on board to start those community discussions, because many of the questions that the community would ask would be better served to be answered by the architectural firm. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, or?
Yeah, so typically it takes anywhere from 6 to 9 months to design the next year's projects. In this case for Parcells, I think we've got a lot of due diligence to do as well. I think we've got to get some feedback from the staff and the students and the parents, that go to Parcells and work there every day, as far as what their needs are, from a curriculum perspective, from a technology perspective, just long-term, what are the needs of that building and that community. We also have a lot of structural issues we need to do some investigating on to understand exactly how to make that piece of the building safe. So I would expect that to take quite a bit of time, probably another 6 to 9 months, quite frankly. So I don't see that project being one of the very first ones that gets figured out and bid out. It'll probably be in the second wave or third wave of projects, because it's going to just take a lot of time to make sure we get it right. And I think we probably even want to go take some tours of some other districts and some of their facilities, maybe some STEM spaces, some technology type spaces. There's a lot of maker spaces and hacker labs and things like that we're seeing. A lot of districts doing robotics, other stuff like that, science and STEM, STEAM even. So I think once we get the architect on board, we really are going to want to lean on them to help facilitate that whole process and help us go see what's out there and think big and dream big a little bit. And then once we go through that process, which will probably take, like I said, maybe 6 to 9 months, then we'd probably start looking at what the design of that space actually looks like. So
real quickly to connect again to the 2025 meetings. It's been a couple months. This being addressed in the initial series of bonds, I think that the correct title for the project is the Parcells Pool Space. I don't want to imply that the end result is going to be a pool. That is not the plan at the moment. It is the space of the former pool. Again, as painful as it is to say and to hear, that is the reality of the space at the moment, and that is the plan that we're going forward with. Also, again, we needed an architect on board. That's here on the agenda. There is also a tie to another project where we are trying to get our IT infrastructure, our server farm, or whatever the correct term is from technology, out of below ground. Basically, it's in the basement and has or could flood. So those two projects are tied together because of their proximity to each other in actual space. So the critical need is getting our IT infrastructure out of a flood risky space, and it ties together with renovating this Parcells Pool space. So to Paul's point, identifying the plan for that space is the next big priority for the administration and for the board to collaborate on, and then getting the architect involved, creating a tangible plan, and then moving forward and actually doing the construction. So that's a long, long road. The reason it is in the first series is because of its tie to that critical need with the IT infrastructure. Just to be clear, because there were questions about how and why this one and not that one, which is, it's a reasonable question to ask. So we answered it then, and I just wanted to answer it again for anybody who may be wondering.
All right, anything further? All right, I'll continue with the two RFPs. Mr. Matteson, there's before you, obviously you have both the masonry, tuck pointing, and the roofing placement RFPs, so I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Matteson to give you a highlight on those.
Thank you. So both these RFPs.
And thank you to our community. I know it's a long night. Thanks for coming.
Leave when I start to
Sorry.
Nothing personal.
I'm being funny. So both these RFPs are similar in nature. They're indefinite scope contracts. That one is for tuck pointing, the other is for roofing. Previously, since my tenure with the district, we've used a sidewalk indefinite scope contract, which I use to take care of the cracked sidewalks, trip hazards, anything like that. These are no different. And I'll start with the tuck pointing piece. In my opinion, tuck pointing is probably structurally one of the biggest needs in the district, and for my desk. We're talking about the envelope of our school buildings. But I would use this as a tool to start repairs. Not that I haven't been doing repairs already on tuck pointing, but this gives us unit pricing year over year for the next 5 years that's locked in. On this specific RFP, we went out to bid on December 11th, and we had 5 bidders. Poe Restoration was the low bidder, who we've been currently using in the district already. Their most recent project with us was at Monteith. We had a lot of leaks in some of the classrooms over there, and they did a great job rectifying the leaks in those spaces. So fortunately, they were the low bid on this, and I'm happy to recommend them to the board. Carrie, did I miss anything? No, I think you pretty much hit it all. One thing to note, that the contract is set up so it's a 1-year contract with 4 1-year options. Right. So this one's a little bit unique. I can't see prices dropping that drastically, but if for some reason year 3 we're seeing competitive pricing elsewhere in the market, we could always go out to bid and redo this. We're not locked in for 5 years in its entirety.
Yeah, it's a great example of leveraging our volume to drive pricing down.
Sure.
And then with that 1-year renewal, it's at the district's discretion. So,
Mr. Matteson, previously, how did we handle tuck pointing? Was it job by job, or was
job by job? When basically
if there's a need in the district and it was under the minimum bid threshold, we would tackle that project, kind of piecemealing out.
And do you happen to know ballpark how much we spent annually on this type of work?
This is
Ballpark.
So I believe last summer I spent probably 60 grand in total over the summer, and then the year before that would probably be 40K. But don't
Right, order of magnitude, we're talking 5
Right.
digits, but
Right.
it could get to 6
But
digits on a bad year.
this is a need in the district, and I really would like to attack it head on, especially at South. I could spend a lot of time at South at some of our older buildings where tuck pointing is a great need.
And obviously very proactive for tuck pointing before we deal with the bigger
Correct.
issues that occur when it's not done.
Gotta keep the water out.
Pardon?
Gotta keep the water out.
Absolutely, it's imperative, for sure.
Yeah, protecting our building envelopes is number one priority for me, with the exception of safety. So,
Last point, just for transparency, again, I know we don't share all of the documents with everybody all the time, but Poe was clearly the lowest bidder.
Yeah.
And
It's a win-win.
established relationship and already doing good work with us.
they did not want to give up their turf.
This was not this one wasn't close.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Again, this next one, is there any more questions on the tuck pointing? So this next one is the same thing. I would use this as a tool to do minor roof repairs throughout the district. Again, same setup. There was 4 bidders on this, and it just so happens Sheena is the one that I use regularly when I have an emergency. If we have a leak in a classroom or in a gym space or wherever, I would call Sheena. So again, this is another situation where they didn't want to lose us, and they bid aggressively to keep the district. And this is, like Gary said, this is a year-over-year thing where we have the option to back out of it for the next 5 years. But it's just another tool that I need personally to continue making sure our structure is protected. So.
Yeah, what makes this really nice is obviously we have to comply with the state bidding requirements for construction. So by doing this, if there is an emergency, we don't have to stop and wait and hire an architect and bid something out and wait a month. We can just deal with it, as they come up. So.
Yeah. And just another thing to note, we're still planning on putting together a 10-year capital plan for all the roofing projects. So we will still come back before the board every year with that summer's projects that we're going to be doing. But obviously we can't replace all the roofs at one time. So it's been a nice little option to repair some stuff over the years.
And then ballpark on roof repairs, not capital plan investment, but did not expect this and have to go fix this.
Sure. I would say it's roughly in the same line. During the summertime periods or during an emergency repair, I'm spending probably 80 to 100K throughout the district, just on repairs. These are considered minor repairs. If I've got bigger repairs, I'm coming to the board obviously for those types of projects. Like the one that's over our head is being done this summer. That's a major repair that obviously went to the board.
And to be clear, the cost savings is in doing a bid like this, where you have that relationship in place and it's a phone call, come do the work. Yep. You do not want to wait until there's a hole in your roof to call the roof guy.
Exactly.
Because then you're over the barrel. Right?
Locked in unit pricing, so that's the beauty of it.
And if the market ever changes, the district can bid it out separately.
Correct.
And roofing's been one of those that has, before COVID, roofs were $8 to $10 a foot. They went up to 40 at one time. Now they're back to 20. So if they did something weird in a couple of years, we could either use this because it's a great deal, or we could throw it in the garbage and start over.
Yep.
All right. Good. All right, and next on the agenda is the committee's Q&A, an open discussion. I know we've been Q&Aing it. So I don't know if there's any additional Q&As, but.
Thank you, everybody at the table. You know, I have a hard time sitting on my questions, so thank you for letting me fire them in real time and answering off the top of your head in places, especially Mr. Matteson. You know, those are tough questions off the top of your head, of course. I never try to hold you to a accuracy standard, but there is an order of magnitude, I think, that is valuable in these conversations to understand what we're talking about in terms of cost to the district. So thank you, everybody at the table. That was a lot of content in a committee meeting, so thank you for being succinct as possible.
So going to action items and follow up, what I see as an action item is that the board needs to help with give direction for the bond oversight committee. Also, there needs to be some type of discussion regarding the second series in preparation for PFM coming in and what kind of questions we have for them. And then obviously we take into consideration what was said by our community members moving forward. Am I missing anything?
I would just say for the governance, some districts, we just bring it to the committee and the board's aware of it and that's it. Sometimes the board votes to adopt it more formally. You can really do it whichever way you prefer. Obviously we are going to live and breathe by these on a daily basis for the next 6 years, so it could make sense to memorialize them, more formally, if that makes sense.
I like the idea of bringing it forward to the board because then it becomes a document that becomes in our agenda. I mean, obviously that's going to be up to the board president to put on the agenda or not, but I prefer to have this document as something that would be something that the board would vote on. And then should we do a separate, if we do that, a separate governance and then a separate bond oversight committee document as well?
Yeah, that probably makes sense.
Okay.
I think Gary already found the one from the last time.
Yes.
I have a copy of it. I'll send it to President Derringer.
That'd be great.
The one from 2018.
Okay,
yeah.
That'd be great.
In terms of action items, the 2 RFPs.
I presume you'll recommend through this, so we don't have to
Right.
go through it all again. And that's ideally how, if a committee recommends it to the board, they.
So being able to kind of wear 2 hats at the same time here for sure. I think the 2 RFPs belong in the first read section of the agenda. Certainly we can add those, to the agenda. I reviewed that with Mrs. Fuga today, but that's a perfectly reasonable.
For the 26th, you want to.
For the 26th, I think they belong in the first read section and then probably voting in the 9th, I believe was the following.
Correct,
right?
yeah.
So then I hear from.
And then what about the governance document? You want that as a first read as well?
Yes, and the oversight committee. So those 4, I think, belong directly into first read section of the upcoming agenda. The Series 2 question, I agree that we need to provide direction, but I think you and I have to kind of get a. There's more
Mr.
moving
Matteson.
parts with Mr. Matteson, and then also we want PFM to be involved there too. So action going forward, but probably not on the 26th agenda yet.
I wasn't suggesting agenda, I was just thinking
Sure.
moving forward.
I'm just
things
trying
that
to
we need
clarify which
yeah,
things.
I wouldn't put that on the agenda.
Yeah, I'm clear on that, thank you.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't have anything else. Do you, Dr. Tuttle?
I'm all set, thank you.
Okay. Well, if that's all we have, then I would make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
2 of us, unanimous.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Safe travels. Stay warm.